const router equals create browser router function. So we are calling that function we have imported, and you can see the color has changed automatically. And then in here we want to create routes from elements, and then that is also going to be a function. Okay, so we are creating a variable called router, which can also be any name, but because it is going to be used for routing, that's why we are calling it the router. Okay, and it's equal to create browser router is a function, and then inside it we are creating routes based on elements. So we'll put the different routes in here. The first thing we have to do is put in the route. So if you recall, we had a route at the top there, so we have to create a route, and then the route has this props. Okay, we call them props. You pass into the component, route component, and it takes this props, which is path, and then it takes also the elements. Okay, prop. So this is how it's going to be, but the element section will be passing components there, so we have to use this curly brace. So if it's just a normal string you are passing, then you use the quotes, but if you are passing a component or a JavaScript function, you need a curly brace to do that. So that's why I'm using a curly brace here to pass a component in here. But the very first path we want to pass is going to be our root path. Okay, that's going to be our root path. So it means that when someone types our URL /, that / is going to match this particular / we have here, and then it would return that component that matches with that route to the person. So let me close this my tag very well. So I need a closing tag, and because this is why I'm doing this, because I'll be putting other routes in between this, so I need to close it in a way that I can have the closing route element also passed or added up, so that in between this I can pass the other child routes that I want to create within this route, parent route. So this main route is going to serve as our parent. So for instance, you have a page, and the page, let's say the page is going to have something like a dashboard. Okay, through that dashboard then you have other pages showing up. So what we are going to do now is just going to be like a container, a parent container that is going to house the other containers we're going to have on the page. So the nav will come in, the nav links would all be in there, and then through that we can be able to visit other pages as well. So it means that we need a page, one component that would be like, would act as a parent's page, a parent component. So we'll go into the this section and then do that. It's going to be a layout component. Okay, because the layout components are the ones that we normally want to use to do the layout of our page. So we'll create one layout container that would house all the other page containers we are going to create in our project. So I'll come, and again the folder structure here is not a must. You can pack all of them in one folder. Okay, you can pack all of them, or even you can just put them in the source folder. It doesn't matter, they will all work. But for it to be well organized, and then also make it easy for you to locate exactly something you wanted, that's why we are organizing them in their respective folder that we have named. Okay, so we are creating you select the main the layouts folder, and then let's create a main layout. Again, the name is my creation, my coining. So main layout, I'm calling it main layout. You can also call it anything at all. So let us all conform to this, but then in future you can call it maybe dashboard or what, parents layout, anything. But for now, because we'll be styling some of these things, let's use one naming convention, and then when it comes to the styling, it wouldn't be very difficult for you to, maybe you may be targeting it differently with a different name, like the names I'm using, but meanwhile you used a different name for them. So let's conform to one standard. Okay, so we are creating the main layouts page in the layouts folder, and this main layouts page would have all the necessary things we need to also be able to actually position things in our page. So it means that our nav will not be rather here. We will not put our nav inside our app.js file, but then rather in the main layout, so that the main layout can have the nav at its side, and then where it can also display contents at its side. That is, and the proper way of actually defining your layout pages. Okay, so they will have a link, a common link. So when you visit all the other pages, the link will still be showing. It's because you are using a layout page that is making it that happen. So the nav will be on the main layout page, and then in between the layout page you have the pages, other pages, components displaying themselves in there. So the nav bar would persist on all the other pages, and that is exactly what we are coming to do here. So let's create one div with a class name of nav bar, right? So we are creating so that we can style it. So we are creating a nav bar div, and then inside it, let's now call the nav bar component we have created. So it means we will remove it from the app and then rather use it in the main layout. So let's import that here and then close that. So in our app.js file, let's go here and remove everything except the div with the class of app. Let's remove everything from here, and then instead we would import. So let me remove the import for my header and my nav bar here. Let me remove the import, and then rather come in here and then import my main layout. Okay, so when I tab, it will import it at the top. So I have my main layout here. This is my app.js file. Rather, in my app.js file, I would rather prefer I use my router provider, and then rather pass my router inside it. So the router is going to actually map to my main layout. Okay, so this is what I'll rather do. Let me do my router provider. Okay, let me do my router provider here, and then a prop I had to pass in here is called router, and then I'll pass in the router function variable I have just created. So this is what I want to do instead. Okay, so I have my router provider which I have imported up here, and then this router provider would host this router that I'm going to pass in here, and then my main layout would be a component I rather pass in here, so that it will come embedded into the router, right? So this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm passing my main layout rather in the route, and because it's on the root, this is the component that will be loaded first. This is the component is going to launch first, and then that would be slotted automatically into the routes. Okay, the router provider would map it and then launch it into our app component, which will be displayed. And then the other components can become like a sub component or sub children of that particular main layout. So this is going to be like our parent element, and then other sub elements would be in, and those sub elements are also going to be components, right? Good. So I can see this in displayed here because we have actually stopped. I have stopped myself my React app from running because I installed that particular library, the React Router DOM. So let us do npm start again to reflect the new changes we have done so far. And also make sure you save your file in order to get the changes reflected. Whilst it's loading, now we don't have the navs again because we have removed the navs from the app.js. Is that not it? And so it is being hosted here. Now this will pass the nav into our app.js because the nav is in the main layout and the main layout is also in the router provider. So it will display our nav at the top, but then not coming directly from the app component, but then rather from the main layouts component. Okay, so let us wait for it to load. Today my system is loading very slow. I think it needs a restart. Let me make sure there are no errors. Okay, so as for this warning, no problem with that. So you can see the page has rendered. We have our nav at the top there. Okay, that looks promising. And now let us style it, because in here you can see that nice blue color here. So we want to have that, and I told you I got that from here, this page. So cssgradient.io brought this, and then I just came here to copy this gradient color here. Okay, and then when I come back to this part in my CSS, because the index.css is linked to our index.js, it would send that whole thing down to the other components. Okay, so first of all, I think I removed my import from there. let me bring my import in there, and this is